Welcome back, Wolfpack. Verlis here, and this is how to use Alolan Exeggutor. Now, I'm going to tell you guys right now, I'm actually excited to be making this guide. That Alolan Exeggutor has surprised me with what it's capable of. Now, unfortunately, it does have the Grass Dragon typing, so there is going to be a lot of weaknesses holding it back. But it's honestly not as terrible of a Pokemon as I thought it was. I thought it's going to be bad, and it should feel bad, and I should feel bad to have to make a guide. But it's not that at all. However, we are going to be weak to Flying, Poison, Bug, Ice, Dragon, and Fairy, 4 times weakness with that Ice right there, and we only pick up 4 resistances. But the strange thing is that it's not as bad as regular Exeggutor, so we can bring up the type charts there. There's still a 4 times weakness, but at least we get rid of that Fire weakness. Like, it's 7 weaknesses versus 6. So I guess we do a little better on the Alolan Exeggutor. Offensively, though, Grass Dragon is not the best. That you can see, we only have a couple of super effective hits, and then a lot of things resist us, and Dragon doesn't really contribute much for like insane amounts of coverage. It's supposed to be fairly reliable, but at least with the Dragon typing, it hits everything neutral except for Steel, and then it converts our Dragon resistance into a super effective hit. So I guess that works out pretty well. Now, looking at these stats for the Alolan Exeggutor, it got a plus 10 to attack and a minus 10 to speed. Other than that, it's just regular Exeggutor. So not too big of changes right here. Now, this will work out with like the new moves and stuff that Exeggutor gets access to. Pretty much Dragon Hammer, and then it just does a little bit more damage with that. So it's not getting completely screwed over by its new move. So at least there's accommodations that Game Freak tried to put into work to at least give some extra viability to the Alolan Exeggutor. And since it's a hilarious Pokemon that got a ton of promotion, it looks like it paid off just a little. Now, as for the abilities, it still gets Harvest, which is very good. Harvest is a very powerful ability, and then it has Frisk, so it can reveal the foe's held items. Not really too much of a change, but this is where things get really cool. Like, I didn't expect to find this many cool things about the Exeggutor, but it has all of the exact same moves as regular Exeggutor, except it gets more, and I think the only thing it doesn't get is Stomp. So it doesn't have Stomp, but it gets Dragon Hammer instead. But then the level up, like standard and Alolan form level up, are going to be pretty much the exact same. And also, since it does come in from a regular Execute, the egg moves are going to be the same as well. And then the TMs are also pretty awesome because every TM that Exeggutor gets, Alolan Exeggutor gets as well. And even Alolan form gets things that the regular one doesn't. Like, we get access to the Earthquake and the Brick Break now. So if you want to run that, you can. We get Flamethrower. Exeggutor with a flamethrower. That actually sounds pretty cool and pretty scary, but then you can see, like, we don't see just the normal form here. It's always going to be the Alolan form because it gets the exact same tool. So if you've been playing with Exeggutor, it's just Exeggutor but less speed and more attack. So your coverage is also going to do some interesting things right here. And then we see that the egg moves are going to be the same right there, and the pre-evolutionary moves are going to be the same. So the Alolan Exeggutor is very familiar, has a lot of the same things that it can use with the regular Exeggutor, a little bit extra as well. So that's going to be really easy to break down. We head on over into Pokemon Showdown. So Alolan Exeggutor, we're going to want to make use of its Dragon Hammer move. Pretty much just 90 base power Dragon beat 'em up move, no additional effect, but it works for stab, so that's pretty awesome right there. And now we can finally use Wood Hammer with a little more effectiveness. So 33% recoil is kind of scary, but it's high amount of base power, still gets stab, and that's why I'm thinking we just run a very heavy sustain set on the Alolan Exeggutor, and that just lets us max out our hit points, max out our attack, be as tanky as possible, and call it good on that adamant nature. So this is where we just set up a Leech Seed, hide behind Synthesis, get tons of health off of our Citrus Berry Harvest, and that's going to be enough to start shrugging off damage. Like, okay, the opponent hits us really hard, well, that's Citrus Berry into Leech Seed into Synthesis, and we're back up at full health, or we can do something like that, and they're also taking damage from the Leech Seed, or we hit them with the Dragon Hammer or the Wood Hammer. Dragon Hammer if they're doing a lot of damage to us, because then we don't have to worry about that extra recoil maybe setting us back. You can Leech Seed stall for a few turns and then just like go for that big finishing damage like Dragon Hammer, Wood Hammer, Leech Seed. That's going to be some pretty big combos right there. And if we're even playing it like that, that gives us the opportunity to just go full tank. And the weird thing is that means we could effectively run the same thing on the regular Exeggutor. So go with a defensive nature, go high special defense investment, go the rest into defense, just whatever the meta is, whatever your team needs. You know, do you need to be completely balanced defensively, more defense, more special defense? Exeggutor has a lot of weaknesses, so that's really where the biggest problem is going to be. However, resetting for the Exeggutor isn't going to be super hard. That Harvest is going to give it back its Citrus Berry. So say you take a lot of damage, you end up synthesizing that turn, and then you're at about 80%, and then Harvest gives you back your Citrus Berry. Well, you can switch out, bring Exeggutor back in, and you don't lose anything. It's not like you're losing an insane amount of setup. The opponent is still Leech Seeded as well, so your ally Pokemon coming in is going to be able to benefit from that. and then we're just playing like this insane, unbelievable amount of health coming into us harvest game while trying to chip in some damage with the Dragon Hammer and the Wood Hammer. Also, you don't want the bold nature, you want the impish nature. I just saw the defense and I slapped it down there, but plus defense, go for that damage, and then you're just running off of high base power stuff while trying to shrug off as much damage as possible. And the weird thing is that Exeggutor has been around a lot longer than Trevenant, but Trevenant is kind of like the go-to harvest Pokemon. I'll even admit this for myself, that I didn't consider Exeggutor as a tanking harvest Pokemon, because you see Trevenant, it does effectively the same things. You can Will-O-Wisp, you can Citrus Berry Leech Seed, and then you can Horn Leech, and then you can try to grab some health back. And Exeggutor just has more than the Trevenant, because Exeggutor can Synthesis. It has a little bit more damage behind it when you're trying to add up all these things, and it also just has better stats. Like, Trevenant's stats are lower than Exeggutor's when going full tank. So that's a really weird thing to consider, that the Exeggutor's been there the whole time, and maybe the Alolan Exeggutor is what we need to kind of unlock this. Also, Trevenant does provide the Will-O-Wisp, which can be pretty awesome, but when it comes to Exeggutor, maybe losing that one weakness might make it slightly more usable, but again, an Ice type comes in, you're screwed. Very powerful Fairy type hit. There's still a lot of things for Exeggutor to worry about, but you don't have commitment issues, and you still have Sustain, and Trevenant has a lot of weaknesses as well. It's just like, the grass typing is strange. You get Leech Seed, you get Synthesis, you have a lot of restorative moves, but you also have an insane amount of weakness behind it. And again, we are exactly like the regular Exeggutor when it comes to special attack, so we could maybe even convert this into something like the Modest Nature. So Modest Nature is going to give us extra points, which means instead of running physical attacks, we get to run special attacks. Now, Giga Drain. Imagine the turn where you're receiving Citrus Berry, Harvest, Leech Seed, and a Giga Drain, or something like that. So we're still finding little bits of extra damage, and it's going to be more than Trevenant's Horn Leech, because Trevenant has a 110 on the attack, and then Exeggutor is going to have a 125 on that special attack. It's strange how this has been here the whole time, and people haven't really been putting it together, and maybe just having that little bit of extra could help out. Also, I don't know, Draco Meteor, some kind of other special attack. That's where you can find the Flamethrower. Maybe a Kartana just wanders into you, and you're like, oh, hey, I'll hit it with a Flamethrower instead, and that's going to be pretty crazy right there. Now, another thing I did want to bring up is like the classic Patea Berry Harvest Exeggutor. This does require a lot of setup, such as an Agility Baton Pass, Speed Boost Baton Pass. I'm just doing the Emolga. Shoutouts to Hayden and his crazy Exeggutor. But it's kind of the same idea. Now, the problem is that minus 10 to the speed on the Alolan Exeggutor is going to make this strategy harder to use than regular Exeggutor, but it means that you can do it the other way around. You can run all physical with the substitute in the Patea Berry combo and then try to harvest up, except you're going to be using a Lychee Berry. But then the problem is, Wood Hammer has recoil, and Dragon Hammer is just going to be less damage, because compared to the special attack and then using like Psy Shock or even Energy Ball, Psychic, all those other moves, you're going to get less out of the physical, but then you can still use this into Earthquake and some other things. So, weird trade-offs, but I think that this is going to stay to the Exeggutor. The Alolan Exeggutor is going to be big on the Harvest. As for what we can do in double battles or even singles, like, imagine this for singles. This is a pretty cool single set right here. So what you want to do is you want to go Quiet Nature, max out hit points, max out special attack, set up Trick Room, use Dragonium Z Draco Meteor. Now you don't lose your special attack, you KO the opponent, and then you get to Draco Meteor or Leaf Storm, and then after you do that, you Wood Hammer. So as long as you're just staying alive, and you can be a 3-hit KO Pokemon with a max hit point investment, you're knocking out two things, and maybe even getting a little bit of extra damage. Because Trick Room, Draco Meteor, thing dies. Draco Meteor, Leaf Storm, thing dies. Wood Hammer, thing dies after you like Leaf Storm, Draco Meteor. Even at a -2, even into the Wood Hammer, you know, you're getting a lot of extra damage pickups right there. And it might even be like a 1 for 2, like your Wood Hammer on your last little sliver of health, finishing off the opponent, finishing off yourself, get a reset, and maybe have like a little bit of Trick Room left as well. That's a thing in double battles. Now you have Trick Room double battles, and they have to do something about the Exeggutor that's doing a Z move Draco Meteor, and then following it up with another Draco Meteor or a super effective Leaf Storm, or some kind of like heavy stab damage and craziness like that. And then maybe you can still do some things to make Exeggutor useful. Instead of the Wood Hammer, you just have Leech Seed. So you just kind of run your damage into the ground. When you go down, well, that means Leech Seed's still active. You're switching to Pokemon. That Pokemon's receiving Leech Seed while under Trick Room. That could still be pretty good, and then you're also threatening insane amounts of damage, so that's always something to respect. And then this is not a moveset on the Exeggutor, but it is some other options. Exeggutor gets Curse. Curse into a 105 attack, tanky-ish Pokemon. That could work. You have Ingrain. If you just want to be the ultimate sustained Pokemon ever, you can run Leftovers instead of a Citrus Berry. You can also run a Confusion Berry, but I think that's a lot riskier. I just like the idea of Harvest, Citrus Berry. You're going to be around 50% a lot, Citrus Berry for free, Harvest could come back, and then you're back at full health, and then cool things are going to happen. Sleep Powder. Use Sleep Powder if you want to set up. can also use Sleep Powder in the Trick Room set, you know, Trick Room Sleep Powder. If it lands, really cool things are going to happen. Also, Earthquake, I've mentioned it, but yeah, that if you need a physical hit to add on to your coverage, you can run the Earthquake as well. And in double battles, Frisk is going to be the way to go, because you get to scout for items, and if you're not running a berry, then there's no reason for having the leftovers. And I think that's kind of it on the Exeggutor, so now it's time to go into the damage calculations. So I was looking, like, what's the difference? We have 105 on the attack, but is that enough to justify a physical hit on the Exeggutor? So let's go and compare it. Alolan Exeggutor against a Silvally that's just like neutral Silvally. Woodhammer doing about 60 to 70%. Dragon Hammer 44 to 53%. So then we have the same thing, but we're looking into special attacks. So kind of like the a special attacking Alolan Exeggutor or just a regular Alolan Exeggutor Giga Drain. That's going to be doing less damage than both the Dragon Hammer and the Woodhammer. But once we go into our Psyshocks or Psychics or Energy Balls, then we're going to be doing more damage right there. But the Woodhammer still wins out. So the 120 base power of the Woodhammer wins out with that 105 attack. If you're going for that just straight Woodhammer beatdown damage, that's going to be pretty good. But also showing that the Draco Meteor, Z Draco Meteor, is enough to just KO a Silvally. Follow-up damage, Draco Meteor Woodhammer is going to be pretty massive as well. Also, Draco Meteor damage going to be the same as the Leaf Storm. Apply your super effective hits and craziness from there. And also showing that the KOs are going to be pretty solid as well. So let's go and bring in a Pokemon like the Tapu Koko. Tapu Koko, if we switch this up to the Leaf Storm, will not be able to survive. So boom, 102%. And that's how you close out games. So yeah, in an ideal situation, you could Draco Meteor to tank Pokemon, Leaf Storm the not as tanky Pokemon, and that's just 2 KOs and Trick Room still up. So those are some of the surprising things, like the insane amounts of sustain, the insane amounts of just damage that you can do with the right Z moves and the right combinations while still setting Trick Room. Like that was another surprising aspect about what happens here. It's like, oh, we still have all of the same TMs. We still have all of the same moveset. So for some reason, even though we're not a Psychic type, we can still Trick Room. We're still an Exeggutor. So that's going to be something that we can play up to. But it just shows, like, the big problem is whether or not Exeggutor just gets KO'd by something random. And then let's look into the Tapu Koko matchup with the physical Exeggutor. So the Woodhammer, not going to be enough to KO unless we have something like the Helping Hand or Curse Boost or +1 or something like that. Just kind of showing the damage is big, but it's not absolutely insanely massive. However, in doubles, we get to survive a Dazzling Gleam. In singles, there's a chance to survive it. And that lets us see that Life Orb damage boosting, mid damage. If it's not a super effective hit, it's going to be like a 2-3-ish KO hit. And that's what Exeggutor needs. Exeggutor needs something to 3-hit KO it with its hit points, with its full defensive investment. And then that's when it starts running. Other than that, though, we can still be exploited and then just get blown up by something. Fairy-type Pokemon using Stab super effective Fairy. That's bad. Pretty much any Stab super effective hit is still going to be very threatening, high chance of lethality to us, so then everything just kind of goes away. Moral of the story, Alolan Exeggutor can be very powerful if it isn't being punished by one of its many weaknesses, so take that and apply it as you will. If you guys enjoyed the video, hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.